Disney villains are never given a break for their horrific behaviors. But what if it wasn't all their fault? Maybe there is more to some of these dark, malicious people that we don't know about. If so, would their history justify their wicked ways? We'll let you decide after this video. Wait until you see what mental illness Gaston suffers from, or how Cruella de Vil was locked in an attic for years. Maybe just a broken child at heart. Are you new to Screen Rant? Give us a like and hit that subscribe button for more awesome videos just like this one. Now we'll reveal the messed up backstories for Disney's notorious villains.
I hate you all!
Queen of Hearts. Off with his head! The famous line screamed by the foul-mouthed monarch who orders executions at the slightest offense. Lewis Carroll, who wrote the original story of Alice in Wonderland, described her by using the words blind fury. So where does all this pent-up and unfixable anger stem from? The Queen of Hearts has Wonderland terrified, and it comes from her intense insecurity. As a child, the parents gave the crown to her sister, the White Queen. Queen of Hearts believed it was because her sister had a smaller head. She became incessantly self-conscious. From that moment on, the Queen of Hearts stopped maturing and became an angry child in a woman's body. As Helena Bonham Carter, who played Tim Burton's interpretation of the role in the 2016 adaptation Alice Through the Looking Glass, says, she has the emotional growth level of a 2-year-old. She lives in an it's-all-about-me world. The Queen of Hearts then overthrew her sister, the White Queen, and claimed the tiny crown as her own. Tiny for her, as her head was so gigantic. This still didn't stop the self-loathing over the fact that she couldn't change the size of her own head, or that she wasn't given the crown without stealing it. Either way, this queen must collect hearts, because, as we can see it, she must not have one.
Here is a sucker for the little sucker. Here you go. You just...
Hades. So many modern stories take after Greek mythology. Even the biggest animation studio did their interpretation of one of the most famous myths. Disney's Hercules is incredibly similar to the original, but without any of the dark family relations or the past of its notorious villains. There's definitely more than one evil dude in this story, but no one as bad as Hades. Our blue flaming-headed villain Hades is the god of the underworld, and his origin story doesn't really give him a choice. Zeus just got the long end of the stick on this one. While Hades had to go look after the dead, Zeus got to chill up in the clouds with champagne and caviar. So it's no wonder that his ultimate plan is to overtake his brother Zeus, the god of the sky and ruler of Olympian gods. Hades has just been surrounded by the dead for so long, his anger management issues really need a break. It's been too long, and he's finally snapped for real. If being born was a sin, then Hades did it, and was stuffed down in the terrible job. Hades may appear to be evil, but he's really just doing his job. Can you blame him?
Oh, the devil take it, they're mongrels. No spots at all. What a horrid little white rat. Ugh.
Cruella de Vil. It's hard to have any understanding or sympathy for someone who dislikes dogs, or for that matter, loves dogs so much she wants to murder them and wear them every day. Either way, a coat of Dalmatian fur is just plain Cruella. Get it? See what we did there? But according to ABC's Once Upon a Time, Cruella de Vil was locked in an attic by her evil mother for years, until she could learn to obey Mommy Dearest. When a news reporter busts her out, she tells the reporter of how her mother murdered 3 previous husbands. Cruella then goes back to tell her mother off before running away with said reporter. However, it turns out she's the crazy one and was born a sociopath with no proper help. She then proceeds to make her mother's Dalmatian dogs kill her in her own foyer. Cruella proceeds to murder the puppies and make a coat out of them. Yeah, talk about bloody. Not exactly a redemption story. But her being a sociopath really isn't her fault. She should have just been locked away in an institute, not made the head of a fashion magazine. Ursula. It's hard to hate a character with such a cool song as Poor Unfortunate Souls. Ursula can sure hold a tune while being manipulative as ever. She convinces Ariel to trade her voice for legs, but her end plan is really to overthrow King Triton. We can't fault her for that. She wants something, and she's a planner. The character, who's based on Hans Christian Andersen's fairy tale, was remodeled by Disney to be so over-the-top evil. So how did the Ursula become so cunning? Well, there's nothing like family to create a jealousy and turn somebody evil. Ursula is actually the adopted sister of King Triton. Their father was Poseidon, ruler of the sea. However, when Ursula grew up, she found out that her birth father was killed by Poseidon in battle, which in turn made Ursula feel like she was only adopted out of his guilt. She turned on her adoptive family and fled, waiting for Poseidon to die. Triton was heartbroken his stepsister just left and forgot about him. When Poseidon dies, she makes a coup to overtake the throne, which Triton did not see coming. Triton finally gets his bearings, takes the throne back, and banishes Ursula. And so the deep and long rivalry begins.
And here's my little secret. I killed Mufasa.
Scar. Disney has admitted that The Lion King was inspired by Shakespeare's famous tragedy, Hamlet. Scar would be King Claudius, but even Claudius wasn't as evil as Scar. Though we do love a lion with an English accent, we want to know why he'd kill Mufasa and manipulate Simba into leaving just to rule Pride Rock and destroy the land. Why, Scar, why? Perhaps his past can give us some insight into our desperate question. Mufasa and Scar, whose real name was Taka, are brothers. Mufasa translates to king, while Taka translates to garbage. How would you feel knowing your parents named you garbage? When the brothers were young, Taka sent a herd of buffalo after Mufasa. When he began to laugh at his own joke, they turned and attacked him instead. Taka's father saved him, and as a result, Taka was left with a scar. Taka said to his father that from now on he should call him Scar, so he'll always remember the lesson that he learned. Well, apparently that didn't work. For one reason or another, he was banished from Pride Rock and had to lead a life of loneliness in the Badlands. After years of neglect, it's no wonder Scar loses it and turns full-on psychopath. Maybe he isn't evil. Maybe he's just very sick. What do you guys think?
Genie, grant me my first wish. I wish to rule on high as Sultan.
Jafar. Jafar's unknown past was told to us by ABC's hit show Once Upon a Time, which explores the world of fairy tale characters. Jafar has much more in common with Aladdin than we actually thought. When he grew up, he was also a peasant orphan and stole on the streets of Agrabah to survive. However, when he discovered that his father was the Sultan and he was actually royalty, Jafar was livid he hadn't been recognized as such, which is obviously where his and Aladdin's stories differ. So Jafar began practicing sorcery as a means to take the throne back that was rightfully his. Jafar's evil ways come from a harsh childhood that he felt he didn't deserve. In his mind, he's just taking back what is already his. As the second most powerful man in Agrabah, he is close to getting what he wants, and he'll stop at nothing to get it. In terms of Jasmine, his pain of being an orphan led him to lead a very lonely life. Also, if he could marry the daughter of the Sultan, he would be closer to his goal. Not to mention, the Sultan sucks at his job. Maybe Jafar just wants to run the city properly for his people. Guess we'll never know. Or maybe Return of Jafar has the answers. Maleficent. Now, this wicked queen has even had her own film made of her, played by the wonderful Angelina Jolie. So she's already a pretty cool villain in our books. Where did it all go wrong? Well, there's two stories. The first was in Disney's 2014 spin-off film. In the film, we learned that when Maleficent was a teenager, she was romantically involved with a boy who would later become King Philip. Probably not just any love, but her first love. However, Philip's desperation to become king made him betray her, cut off her wings, and present them to the king. When the original king died, he took over the throne. Maleficent was obviously heartbroken, and by cursing Princess Aurora, she felt like she was in some way getting back at him. The second story goes that when Maleficent was young, she was unable to control her powers, so she wasn't invited to Aurora's baptism. So hurt and angry to not be included, she cursed the child. Either or, the woman was not treated properly, which led her to destructive behaviors. She may even regret what she did, but admitting her wrongdoing would be more painful, so instead, she acts regal. Come on, we all know the feeling of acting on impulse and realizing later. Luckily, we don't have the capacity to curse people with our magic.
Girls, girls. That's quite enough. Hurry along now, both of you. I won't have you upsetting yourselves.
Stepmother. Cinderella is the ultimate fairy tale, making children believe that putting up with abuse will lead you to a lavish life, granted to you by magic. It depicts how a young woman can get by without standing up for herself, and paints passive aggression in a positive light. All these negative messages are never spoken about, but Lady Tremaine's abuse gets bashed. Obviously, abuse isn't good. but neither is filling our brains with moral stupidity. Fairy tales will be fairy tales, and the stepmother just happens to have a sad history that nobody asks her about. Her husband died, thus she remarries because being a single mother with daughters at the time was not only hard, but frowned upon. However, the man she married was still mourning his recently deceased wife and would rather spend time with his daughter, Cinderella. The stepmother became more and more jealous. When Cinderella's father died, jealousy morphed into hatred. So, yes, she is cruel, but we hadn't examined why or even the other issues of this morally corrupt story. Her cruelty was not just a reflection of her own pain, but also that of the world she lived in. Really, if you think about it, the stepmother may be the least of this film's problems.
Looks very much like the gypsy girl. I know. You helped her escape!
Claude Frollo. The Hunchback of Notre Dame was a child-friendly retelling of the original novel. What was left out of the Disney film was the messed-up history of the main villain, Claude Frollo. Frollo's evil tendencies spawned from some deep-seated religious guilt, depression, and growing up without parents. Frollo was a very smart but very sad orphan. His depression led him to the church where he sought refuge of his own pain. Through the church, he became a priest who was burdened with his rough childhood, which he kept hidden from everyone. With his intellect, he began studying many things, one of them being sorcery. Through sorcery, he found his power. People were afraid of him, and he no longer felt so meaningless and alone. When Claude is attracted to Esmeralda, he feels that she's the evil one, sent to test his faith and patience. Not to mention his anger and guilt over not being able to have her, which feeds into how crazy he gets. Convinced she was sent by Satan, he takes some extreme measures. So we can see here he may be evil, but it's really all coming from a place of suffering. That being said, he did practically save and raise young Quasimodo. Either way, Claude needs to see a therapist, like yesterday.
Nobody deserves you, but at least I know our children will be beautiful.
Gaston. Our ultimate bro villain Gaston, who's taken over the world one annoying comment at a time, decorating with antlers and swallowing raw eggs. So where'd this dude come from, and why is he so obsessed with Belle? Well, Luke Evans, who played Gaston in the live-action remake, has a pretty awesome backstory for him. When Luke talked to Entertainment Weekly, he shared why Gaston was the way he is. He said the fact of the story is that Gaston is a war hero and an army captain, and the only reason he's got the celebrity status in Villeneuve is because when he was about 16, he protected the town. Okay, so then why is he still such a dodo? Well, the boy suffered from PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and never received any help, which resulted in Gaston being a very dark, very pained person. And when Belle rejects him, he can't handle any more negative emotions. Luke Evans went on to say that he suffers from PTSD, which he manages because he has people like the villagers and LeFou, and the girls who puff him up. But below all that is a broken human being. The second he realizes that he's not going to get what he wants, this military creature comes out of him. So despite his snap of organizing the beast hunt, he's just a suffering dude, and we all love a good bad guy. Which Disney villain do you have the most empathy for? Do you think their past justifies their evil ways? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the subscribe button to stay up to date on all things film. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.